Hello, all you Elvis fans. This is Krista Joy, founder of TCBRadioNetwork.com.
And I'm your co-host of TCB Radio Network and Elvis tribute artist, Peter Alden. Welcome to the TCB Radio Network podcast. Get ready for some Elvis content and news you can use, where it's all Elvis, all the time.
We've got your interviews with authors, Elvis fan club presidents, artists, musicians, and of course, close personal friends of Elvis Presley, the people who knew him, the man himself.
Thank you for tuning in.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy.
It's time for the TCB Radio Network podcast.
Hey there.
Hey there. We would like to thank Marian and Cocke for joining us today on TCB Radio. And Marian, just to get this all started, we're going to ask a question I'm sure you've been asked many times, but were you always an Elvis fan?
That's so funny. I was never an Elvis fan until after I took care of him. And that's a funny story, because we were sitting around talking one night, and he said, Miss Cocke, have you been to any of my shows? And I said, no, honey, I never was a fan of yours. And he sort of leaned back in his chair, and his eyes got real big, and he said, well, hell.
I probably wasn't used to that answer.
And I said, I am now, but I know you now. And so that was I guess I'd been with him probably a month by the time that happened, taking care of him about a month. But I just told him, no, honey, I never was. I'm sorry, but now that I know you, I certainly am.
That's fantastic.
I told Priscilla that story one night, and she got a big kick out of it, too.
Well, as Krista said, he probably wasn't used to that answer.
I don't think he was, not by the way he looked, and those eyes got so big.
Well, you almost sort of kind of had two first chance meetings with Elvis. Can you tell everybody about the first two times you met him?
Well, you know, the first time I ever met Elvis was when he was probably 21 or 22, and he had broken his finger playing touch football. And when he came to the hospital to have his finger fixed, of course, it being Elvis, they admitted him. So I was doing private duty nursing at the time because Katie was little and I could pick and choose my own hours and days I worked. And I came out of my patient's room about the time he came out of his room. And the funny thing is, we walked down the hall together and had a conversation the entire time we walked down the hall. And I could not tell you for 1 minute what we talked about, nor did I even remember it. Mm-hmm. And then after I started taking care of him, and that's sort of a funny story too, because Dr. Nick came to me one day on my floor, and he said, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. And so we got away from the desk, and he said, Elvis is sick, and I'm bringing him in the hospital, and I want him on your floor. And I said, okay, I guess you want the suite. And he said, yes. And I said, well, it's not occupied, so I will put a hold on it and be sure that it's not taken. But when is he coming? And he said, he'll be here probably in a day or two, either tomorrow or the next day. He said, I'll call you when he gets here and when we start the hospital. And I said, okay. So I called the admission office, and there was a lady down there named Sarah Edwards. And Sarah actually lived out in Whitehaven, where Graceland is. And I said, Sarah, I've got something to tell you, and do not say anything on your end of the phone other than yes or no. Mm-hmm. And she said, okay. So I told her, I said, Elvis is coming in the hospital in a couple of days, and I'm going to put a lock on this suite, and you've got to put something down there that says that the suite that's out of order or something, or whatever you want to put, but put something on there so nobody comes and tries to give that suite away. And she said, yes, ma'am. And I said, good girl. So anyway, I locked it up and did not tell any of my staff he was coming. And I knew that when he was going to come, I was going to be the first one to know it anyway. So 2 mornings later, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I got a call that they were on their way to Baptist. And so I got up and got ready to go, and when I got to the hospital, I parked in the parking lot across the street and wondered if he was there. And, it's really funny. When I walked through those doors that morning on the Union side of the building, I knew the minute I walked inside that door that he was there. You've heard of static electricity?
Yes.
Where it was going completely through that building. So I went on up to the first floor on the escalator and went to the elevators and got the elevator to my floor and got off, and it was in the winter time. It was in January. He had just had his 40th birthday. And I got to the nurse's station, and my night nurse said, "Miss Cocke, he's already here." And I said, "Yeah, I know he is." So I went on in my office and put my purse up and put my cap on and put my coat up and closed the door and went on down the hall to his room. And the closer I got to the door, the more excited I got. I thought, I'm going to really see this guy. Still not remembering that I had met him 21 years earlier.
Yeah, like you truly weren't a fan at all.
That's right. And actually, I think Elvis was probably, I don't know whether he was dead by the time I remembered it or if I remembered it beforehand and told him about it. But of course, he wouldn't have remembered it either.
Yeah, he met so many people.
Yeah, but anyway, I walked in that door and I saw him sitting on the bed, and Linda was shaving him. He had a beard. And I don't know whether he had just finished making Charo, because I never went to his movies. And so I don't know whether it was from a movie or just the fact that he had not worked for a little while and had grown a beard. But Vernon was in there, and Joe Esposito, and one of the other guys, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Dick Grobe, but I'm not sure. And then, of course, Linda was shaving him. And so Dr. Nick started introducing me first to Joe and then to Vernon, then to Dick. And he said, "And you know who this is?" I said, "Yeah, I think I know who that is." And so in just a couple of minutes, the guys got up to all leave and said, "Well, we're going to leave so you can get settled down and meet each other, talk to each other for a little bit." So they started out of the room, and Joe turned around and he said to Elvis, "Boss, we have to see about private duty nurses for you." And Elvis said, "Well, I'm going to talk to Miss Cocke first, and then we'll decide." And he said, "Okay." So they left, and Linda, she left the room, and so it was just Elvis and me all day, and we sat there and visited. And actually, we watched that movie Brian's Song on television, and we both cried. And he cried, I think, probably more than I did.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, it was. It really was. But we did. We both sat there and cried. And I took his blood pressure and gave him his medication that he needed. And we just visited. I kept his ice water pitcher full because he drank lots of water. And so about 1 o'clock, he said, "Miss Cocke, what do you want me to do about private duty nurses?" I said, "Oh, I haven't forgotten it." I said, "Oh, well, honey, whatever you want to do is okay with me." And he said, if you want me to have private duty nurses, I will. But I want you to be the one to take care of me. And I said, "Well, if I'm going to be the one to take care of you, you don't need private duty nurses. However, I won't be here 24/7. And I said, "My 3 to 11 charge nurse can take care of you on that shift, and the 11 to 7 nurse can take care of you on her shift." So he was fine with that. So we never had private duty nurses from then on.
Wow.
And I started taking care of them. I do have to tell you something funny about that, though. I always watched Tony, Orlando, and Dawn.
Yes.
And one day, let me say this first. I was responsible for 51 other patients. And I saw every patient on my floor twice a day. And I explained to Elvis, now this is what I'm going to be doing with you. I'm going to be taking care of you. I also have a responsibility to 51 other patients. I'm in charge of the floor and everything that happens. And I have to check every order on every patient that an order is written on. So I'm not going to be in here with you all the time. But when you need me, you call me and I will come. But I went in on my day off to take care of them. That's another story too. I'll tell you that later. But anyway, it all worked out so well. And, my memory is very sharp where Elvis is concerned, but sometimes I forget what I was going to say if I change the subject, and then when I get ready to go back to it, I can't remember what it was I was going to say.
We all have that.
Yeah, I think we all have a little of that, Marian.
91 and a half years old, you're entitled to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, anyway, but that was exactly how I first met Elvis. And, I know what I was going to tell you about with Tony Orlando. So I had gone in the next morning and I said, did you watch Tony Orlando and Dawn last night? And he said, no, ma'am, I didn't watch it. And so I'm puttering around the room there and I'm singing under my breath, tie a yellow ribbon around the oak tree. And finally he said, Miss Cocke. I turned and looked at him. I said, what, honey? He said, you're irritating the hell out of me. I said, oh, okay.
And now we know why Elvis never recorded tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree.
I told that at the mafia reunion one night, and it about brought the house down. And George said, I never heard that story. And I said, I don't think I've ever told it before.
That's funny. So it's safe to say that you were a bigger Tony Orlando fan.
Well, I liked his show, and I watched it every week. And just like I loved Dean Martin. When Dean Martin had a show, there's no way in the world I was going to miss Dean Martin and Carol Burnett's show and some of those shows.
Yeah.
But I just happened to have seen Tony Orlando the night before and was just really not even aware, I guess, that I was humming it or singing it in Elvis's room. And I guess that went on for maybe a minute or so, and that's when he said, Miss Cocke. I said, you're irritating the hell out of me. I never tried to sing in his room again, anything, because I didn't want to irritate him.
Right. This is a no singing zone in Elvis's room.
I'll tell you, it was really, really something.
Yeah. Now, you were taking care of Elvis, but you never actually accepted a salary from him. So can you let us know about how that came about?
Well, he was going home after the second time in the hospital, and but Dr. Nick was in the room, and we were talking, and Dr. Nick said, we've got to get nurses for him to go home with him, and he needs private duty nurses right now. And so Elvis said, I'm taking Miss Cocke. And I said, well, honey, I really can't go home with you. I've got a job here.
Her husband and a daughter.
And I'll call you, or I will, I just can't do it. And he said, couldn't you do it for a couple of weeks? And I said, well, is that all it's going to be? And he said, yeah, I think so. And I said, well, I've got to talk to my husband and my daughter about it tonight. I can't just, say I'll do this because they've got to have a say-so in it. And he said, well, will you talk to them tonight? And I said, yes, I will. And Dr. Nick said, Elvis, she really can't go with you. She's got a really big job here. And Elvis said, well, he said, if it's just for a couple of weeks. And I said, well, let me see what Bob and Katie have to say about it. So I talked to them that night at dinner, and Bob wanted to know how long, and I said, a couple of weeks. And Katie was thrilled to death. She had met him, and
now was Katie an Elvis fan?
Not really, but knowing that he was as popular as he was and who he was, then she was excited. And she had met him because she came up on the floor one day, and I didn't let the staff always wanted to go in and see him too, and I wouldn't let them because you let one go in, you got to let them all go in. And he was not having visitors. And they called me when I was down in his room and said, your daughter's here and wants to see you. And I said, oh, well, I'll be out. And Elvis said, well, tell her to come down here. And I said, Elvis, I don't let my staff come in here. I can't let my child come in here. And he said, well, I can. And he said, I want your daughter to come in here. And so she came in. She was home from college, and she came in, and she had on a real cute outfit. And she walked in, and she was tickled to death to see him. We were standing in the foyer, and he went right over and leaned over and kissed her on the cheek, and I thought she was going to faint. But anyway, she really, she was really taken with him. And so that was her first meeting, and then we had another plane ride with him further down the road that I'll tell you about later. And so but she did get to meet him, and she was really tickled. But I told Bob, I said, I am not taking a salary from this guy. And he said, no, I don't want you to. So he said, well, it's okay if you're going to just be gone 2 or 2.5 weeks. So I went in the next morning. Dr. Nick was in his room when I went in. And I said, the first thing he said when I walked in the door was, can you come? I said, yes, I can come for the 2.5 weeks or whatever. And so Elvis said, well, bring your Social Security card. And I said, why do you want to see my Social Security card? And he said, so you can be paid. And I said, I'm not going to take your money. I'll do what I can for you, and I'll take care of you as much as I can. But I'm not going to take your money. And he said, why the hell won't you take my money? Everybody else will. And I said, well, just count me out, fella, because I'm not taking your money. And so he said, well, okay, if that's the only way I can get you. And I said, that's the only way you can get me is no pay. And I told the girl that was going to be 3 to 11 that I was not taking a salary from him. She said, I won't either. So neither one of us took a salary from him. She just was not there near as long as I was. She was there. She left after Thanksgiving because she worked. She went in the morning. She was my 3 to 11 charge nurse on that floor, and she went to Grayson about 10 o'clock in the morning and left about 2:30 in the afternoon to relieve me. And then I would go home and cook dinner for my family and go out to Graceland. And Lisa and I were roommates.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm just amazed.
He had a day bed moved into Lisa's room, and he said, now this is a day bed for Lisa, and I want you to sleep in her bed. I said, well, I really prefer the day bed. No, I want you to sleep in her bed. You can, she can sleep on the day bed. So I really didn't want to sleep in it, but that night I got in that bed, and it had sort of a carousel-like type at the top. It had a big top over it and everything. I got in that bed and got settled down, and I looked up, and there was some woman looking down at me. Darn mirror in the ceiling of it.
Oh, that's funny.
I got out of that bed like white on rice, and I grabbed the cover off that bed and that pillow, and I got over there on that day bed, and I never crawled back on that around bed again. I stayed in that bed. I mean, on that day bed. But anyway, that was my first time there. But it was a lot of fun, you know, and 2.5 weeks ran to 2.5 years, and I still never accepted a salary.
See, that's what's amazing to me. Not only did Bob let you go stay or help take care of a celebrity like Elvis, but he accepted that you didn't want money for it. I think most husbands would have been like, you know.
Yeah, if you're going to do this, I want you to get paid.
Yeah.
Well, but, you know, he didn't want me to take the money either.
He's just a great guy.
He was very adamant about that. Yeah, he didn't want me to take the money either. And I said, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't, if I had to take money from him, I would have said, no, I won't do it again. And Elvis asked me, he said, when he said, why the hell won't you take my money, everybody else will? I said, well, I think it wouldn't hurt if somebody did something for you once in a while without money.
Aww.
And, you know, a lot of times people ask me, what's the nicest gift he ever gave you? Mm-hmm. What's the very nicest gift Elvis Presley ever gave you? And we were sitting up in Lisa's room one night, which is where we sat every night. Never in his room, always in Lisa's room. Whether she was there or not, she was never. If she was there, she wasn't in the room with us. She was out playing. But he reached over and he put his hand on my knee and he said, Miss Cocke. And I said, it was so serious. And I said, what is it, honey? And he said, you are one of the few people I know who has never asked anything of me but friendship. And that is the nicest gift that Elvis ever gave me.
Wow.
And that's the only gift that I've never given away.
Well, and I know you have tons and tons of great stories like that. It's probably hard to pick, but we were wondering if you have a favorite Elvis story.
Oh, golly, I've got so many favorite Elvis stories. Let me see.
We got lots of time. You can tell more than one.
Well, you know, the funniest one. I'll tell you the funniest one first. He would come in Lisa's room at night, and I would always sit on the daybed. And he had a big leather chair in there, and he had a new television set put in there. And so he was ready for coffee. So I called downstairs and asked Maggie if she would bring our coffee up to us. And she always knew to bring 2 cups. And so she brought our coffee up to us. And I always fixed his coffee. He said he never could get it fixed right. And I didn't didn't put sugar in my coffee, but I had seen how much Bob put in his, so I put in the same amount in Elvis's and the cream, and he said, well, you're going to have to fix my coffee every time I drink it because this is good. And so I always would go over when he finished drinking coffee and was ready for another cup. If there was a little bit in there or not, I always took the cup over to the little sink over the refrigerator in the room and rinsed it out with hot water. And so, but Maggie came in and brought the coffee. And she started out the door, and she was a light-skinned black girl, and she's a real sweet girl. And he said, Maggie, I swear you've got the biggest ass I have ever seen. And I about fell off that daybed laughing, and he was laughing too. And Maggie's face was red, and she was laughing also. And so we finally pulled ourselves together. Maggie ran out of the room still laughing. And we sat there, and I'd never heard him say anything like that. So in a few minutes, his coffee cup was empty, so I picked it up to take over to the sink. But instead of walking over to the sink, I backed over to the sink. I reached behind.
Well, he's not going to get a look at me.
I turned the spigot on and rinsed the cup out, and he said, Miss Cocke, what the hell are you doing? And I said, you are not going to tell me that I've got the biggest ass you've ever seen. Well, his face turned beet red, and he was stammering and stuttering. And I said, don't you sit there and lie to me, boy. I can tell by looking at you that's what you were thinking.
Oh, that's hysterical.
But, oh, golly, I've got a banana pudding story and this kind of story and that kind of story and every kind of story imaginable. But I can tell you one thing for certain. I loved him dearly, and I will always love him.
Yeah, well, that's obvious. And we're going to get into all of that and the things that you're doing for him to this day. But I wanted to back up. You had a story about an airplane story, you said.
Oh, my goodness. That was a hoot. Got home from church one Sunday, and about 3 o'clock that afternoon, telephone rang, and it was Elvis. And he said, I want to go to fly out to see the Lisa Marie. Can you get out here early? Can you come out here now? And I said, well, yeah, I can come on out now. And of course he talked sort of loud, and Katie was right there by me, and she said, oh, mother, can I go? And he heard her. He said, yeah, bring Katie. She can go too. So Bob took us out there. And, no, I drove out there, I think. Anyway, we went out there and went on upstairs to Lisa's room, and he came in a few minutes and said, we're going to Dallas to see the plane, that they're getting ready to refurbish it, and we're going to go out and take a look at it. So I said, okay, that'd be fun. So we went on, got out to the airport and went up in a plane. It was a small jet, I think. And so we flew to Dallas, to some little airport between Dallas and Fort Worth. And there was a crowd of people there. They had let them know, I guess the people that worked there had let all their relatives know that Elvis was coming. And they had the fence there, and they were fenced off. But they wanted pictures and autographs, and he very graciously went over and signed some autographs and had some pictures made and everything. And so we went on in and looked at the plane, and when we were ready to leave, well, actually, when we went in the plane, the only room that was complete was the conference room where the table and chairs were, the long table and chairs. But they had the material there to do the covering of the furniture, and then we went back into the bedroom, and they had the bed in place, and nothing else was done to it. But anyway, they had the basic things already set in there. And so when we left the plane, I went into the little office to call Bob and say, we're getting ready to leave here, coming back to Memphis, and you can pick Katie up at Graceland in probably about an hour and a half, because I needed my car to get to work the next day. And Elvis came in just as I hung up, and he said, Miss Cocke, we're not going right home, we're going to Vegas. And I said, Elvis, I have to go to work tomorrow morning. I'll get you back. So he said, call your husband back. So I called Bob back, and I said, just come for Katie when I call you and tell you we're going to Vegas. And he said, okay. So we got back in the plane and headed for Vegas. And I remember so clearly as we flew over the Grand Canyon, he said, Katie, come here and look, honey. And he looked and he said, man, how great thou art. How great thou art. And we flew on into Vegas, and we were met there by Dr. Gano, I think his name was. And he drove us to his home, and we were there for about an hour. And in the meantime, Katie and I had not had anything to eat since we had gotten out of church. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. And so we were headed back to the airport, and Elvis said, well, they should have the plane gassed up by now. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to have to gas Katie and me up, or we're not going to make it back to Memphis because we're hungry. And he said, oh, there'll be some food on the plane. There'll be some food on the plane. I said, well, where are the guys? He said, they're on the plane. They're on the plane. So we got back to the airport, and sure enough, the guys were on the plane. And we got in and we went on toward the back, and there on the table we had been sitting at was a huge tray that was piled high with sandwiches and diced up fruit and cookies. And on the other table was just a tray full of fresh fruit. And so we sat down, and the four of us, there was not even a scrap of lettuce left on that tray. Between Elvis and Linda and Katie and me, there was not one scrap of food left on that tray.
Wow.
And so we were sitting there talking, and the pilots were in place. And Elvis said, "Have you ever been to Palm Springs?" And I said, "No, I've never been to Palm Springs." He said, "Well, I think we'll go. I want to show you my house." I said, "Elvis, I have to go to work in the morning, honey. I have to go to work in the morning." He said, "I'm going to get you back. I'm going to get you back." So he got on the little thing there, and he called the pilot. He said, "Let's go to Palm Springs." So he said, "We're almost going to have to go over my house just to turn this darn plane around. So we're going to go. I want you to see my home up in the hills." So we turned and we went to Palm Springs, and we got off the plane, and Dick Grove was with us that night. And Dick got off the plane and went in and talked to somebody and borrowed a station wagon. That's when they had station wagons. You know, they don't have them anymore.
Right.
And so he borrowed a station wagon. Elvis and Linda and Katie and me and all those guys piled up in that one station wagon and headed up into Chino Canyon and went in the house. And, you know, you've heard the story that Elvis would shoot out television sets once in a while, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So we went in and into the foyer, and he said, "Come on, I'm going to show you the house." So we turned to the right and started down the hall. In the first bedroom we went to, there was a television set with a bullet hole in it. And Katie said, "Mother, there's a bullet hole in that television." I said, "Hush, Katie." He didn't respond. He acted like he didn't hear. So he went ahead and showed us the rest of that wing with the bedrooms and the bathrooms and everything. And then we turned and went back through the living room and the dining room and into the kitchen. And then off the kitchen, there had been a big room built. It was quite a large room that, oh gosh, it looked like it might have been about 40 by 40 foot, probably about 40 foot square, and maybe 50 foot square, and it had black and white tile on the floor. And then the funny thing about it, to get to the master bedroom, you had to go out the door, and the master bedroom was completely cut off from the rest of the house. You had to go outside to get to it. And so we went and he showed us the master bedroom and everything in there. And then we went on back and we went in the living room and he played the piano for a while. And all the time I'm saying, "Elvis, I got to go to work in the morning. I got to go to work in the morning. I'm going to get you back. I'm going to get you back." So finally we stayed up there about an hour and a half and we left and headed back to Memphis. We got back to Memphis at 5:30 the next morning. And I had Katie lay down on one of the long bench-like things there and take a nap. And it was padded, so it was soft. And she had a pillow. And Elvis wanted me to lay down and take a nap. Well, I laid down, but I never did go to sleep. And he went up and didn't have a pillow either. And so he went up to where the guys were and had one of the guys take their jacket off and came back and put it under my head for a pillow. So we finally got back to Memphis at 5:30 or 5:45 and got out to Graceland. I went in and took a quick shower and dressed and went downstairs. Charlie Hodge had fixed mine and Katie's breakfast for us. And we had breakfast and got in my car. And I drove on to work, and then Katie took my car and went on home. And I worked all day that day. I'd been awake all night. I'd been awake since Sunday morning.
Oh, my goodness.
Monday morning. So I worked all day, and I went home and cooked dinner for Bob and Katie and I. We ate, and I headed out to Graceland again. And so I hadn't been in the room up in Lisa's room more than 10 minutes. I let him know I was there. He came down the hallway, snapping his fingers and just feeling his oats, and came in, and I was standing there with the blood pressure cuff in my hand, and he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I have not had any sleep since yesterday morning, 6 o'clock. So I took his blood pressure. I gave him his blood pressure medicine. And I said, "Now I'm going to tell you something. I want you to turn around. I want you to walk right back down that hall to your room and call the kitchen and get you something to eat, because I'm going to bed. Do not come in here and call me and wake me up unless it's a matter of life and death."
You could do that because he wasn't paying you.
Yeah.
He said, "Yes, ma'am." And he turned around and walked right back out of that room and down that hall. And I didn't see him anymore that night. Or the next morning when I got up and went to work, and Charlie Hodge had my breakfast cooked for me when I got downstairs. "Well, no, Miss Cocke, what the hell did you all do yesterday?" And I said, "Ask me what we didn't do, and I can tell you better."
Right, yeah, it might be easier to say what we didn't do.
I know. So I got in my car and went on back to work, but I had a good night's sleep.
Wow, finally, after
That's right.
After your marathon trip out to...
Elvis was very, very spontaneous. We were almost killed on a three-wheeler. Called me one afternoon. I just gotten home from work. Bob came out. He said, "Elvis on the phone. He wants to talk to you right away." And I said, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And he said, "I don't know." And so walked in the house and picked up the phone. I said, "What's the matter, honey?" And he said, "Can you come on out here now?" And I said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" "Oh, no, I got something I want to show you." And he said, "I really need you to come on out here." And I said, "Well, okay." And so I told Bob, I said, "I don't know what the heck's going on. He just wants me to come right on out there. I don't know what's wrong." And he said, "Well, get your stuff and go on." So I did, and got out there, and Bob said, "Don't worry about Katie and me. When she gets home, we'll go up to the cafeteria and have dinner." So I go on out to Graceland, and he's bought three-wheelers. And he said, "I want to take you for a ride on my three-wheeler."
Oh, dear.
And I said, "A three-wheeler?" And he said, "Yep, it's not a motorcycle, it's a three-wheeler." And I said, "Okay." So we go downstairs, and there's 4 guys downstairs. Billy Smith was one of them. I don't remember who the others were. Billy's wife, I think, was there. I'm not sure. Somebody rode behind him. Anyway, Elvis said, "This is my bike here, and you get on this seat right here behind me." And he said, "You just put your arms around me and hold on." And I said, "That won't be a problem." So we went out the main gate on those three-wheelers. And, of course, the crowd was just hooping and hollering. And we turned to the right and went down to Dolan Street and turned to the right again. Well, back then, Whitehaven was not built up like it is now. So there were 2 or 3 blocks of homes there, but then it was mostly open field. So we were flying along, and I mean, he had that thing wide open. And all of a sudden, he slammed the brakes on. And had I not really grabbed on real tight, I would have just flipped right over his head. And some car, he was about to run, well, he did run the stop sign. And this lady and a little boy were in the car, and she had slammed her brakes on to keep from hitting us. And the little boy was right up at the windshield, his eyes just as big as saucers. Mom was draped over the steering wheel, and Elvis turned around and looked at me, and he said, "Son of a bitch, we almost got hit." And I said, uh-huh, and let's go back to the house. Right. So he took off, and we went on back. We got EP Boulevard, and we were going down EP Boulevard, and I was holding on for dear life, and we turned and went on up in the house. Well, the next morning when I went to work, one of my staff from one of my floors said, I had 4 floors by then, said, Miss Cocke, did I see you on EP Boulevard yesterday holding on to Elvis Presley on a 3-wheel? And all I said was, do you think I'm crazy? And I said it just that way. And I told that story at the Mafia reunion one night. So some woman, smart ass out in the audience, said, so you lied. And I didn't even dignify it by answering it. I just said, do you think I'm crazy?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I said.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I was.
That's exactly right. I neither confirmed nor denied.
Now, Marian, how long did it take you to realize you should probably not get in any more vehicles that Elvis wants you to get into?
Well, one night he decided we were going for a ride, and I said, okay, in your car or mine. And that particular night, he said, well, I want to drive your car and see what it'll do. Because it was the white Grand Prix that he had given me. Mm. And so we took off, just the 2 of us, and went for a ride. Get over here. I'll put my hand. Come on. Maggie wants some attention.
Oh.
So we took off, and he got on the expressway, and he really opened that car up to see what she would do. And I said, if you're satisfied now, can we get off at the next exit and go back to the house? And he drove on for a few minutes, and then we went on back to the house. He really wanted to see what it could do, and he found out it would really go pretty darn fast. I said, what are you going to do if we get arrested? And then but he was so spontaneous. You never really knew exactly what to expect until it happened.
Yeah.
And, he was just, he was really something else.
Well, and I love that you've written down some of your memories, too, so we should mention that really quick. I want
to tell you this about that, though, Krista. Okay. After Elvis died, he'd been gone about 6 weeks, and I said to Bob, we were on our way to church one Sunday, and I said, it just seems so strange not to be going to Graceland anymore. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, what you should do before you get too old to remember, you need to write down what you remember about Elvis, so that you can remember when you get too old to remember, so you could go back and read what you've written down. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that might be a pretty good idea. So I did over about a 2 or 3 month period, and went through one book with him, and then had to get another one. And so he Bob had gotten me the books, and so I had written it all down. And after I finished it, I put it in my camphor chest and left it, so that when I got too old to remember, I could go back and read it. Mm-hmm. And so he said, okay, so that's what I did.
Yeah, and that was all you thought would happen. And then one day somebody said to you about a book.
Well, that was Vernon, his dad.
Yes.
And so Vernon had been in the hospital, and he let me know he was there. He was just there for studies. And so he thought he was going home the next day, and he'd come in the night before. And so he called me, and I went up to his room, and I said, how are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm okay, Miss Cocke. He said, it just bothers me about all these bad books coming out about my son. And I said, well, Vernon, I'm going to be very honest and tell you that I've written down my memories of your son, but I didn't do them for publication. I've got 2 notebooks in my camper chest at home. And I told him how I came to do it. And he said, would you bring them and let me read them? And I said, well, of course I'll let you read it. And so I got home that afternoon and went in, and I told Bob, I said, I got to get those 2 notebooks out of my camper chest. Vernon wants to see them. He's in the hospital, and he's probably going home tomorrow. So I took him up to his room the next morning and left him, and not knowing what time he was going home. And so 2 or 3 days later, I got a call from him. And he said, Miss Cocke, can you come out to see me this afternoon? And I said, sure, are you doing okay? And he said, yeah. He said, I'd just like for you to come out, have a cup of coffee with me and visit with me for a little while. And he said, I really would like to talk to you. And I said, okay. So I called home and I told Bob, I said, I'm going to be a little late. Vernon called me and want me to come out. He wanted to talk to me. So I got out there, and he was living in the house on Dolan Street. He had moved out of Graceland. He was living in the house on Dolan Street, and we had a cup of coffee and visited, and his nurse companion was there. He said, I want you to pick up the 2 notebooks, and he said, I want you to do something for me. And I said, well, I'll do anything for you I can. And he said, I want you to have this published. I said, oh, Vernon, I can't do that, honey. I can't do that. And he said, why can't you? And I said, well, I didn't take any money from your son when he was living. I'm not going to take any from him now that he's dead. And he said, forget about the damn money. I want people to know the Elvis that you know. Mm-hmm. And that's important to me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if I can find the place to put the money, I'll do it. But I just can't take money from him now that he's gone. And so I did. I looked around for a while, and finally I had met someone from the University of Memphis. Some guy up east wanted to co-write it with me, and I wouldn't let him because I knew it wouldn't be my book.
Right.
And I told him no. Actually, he did write a book later, and he had quoted some of the stuff from my book that he had taken out of it. Mm. But anyway, University of Memphis printed it. But they said, no, you got to change some of this verbiage in here. You can't use hell or damn or some ass with this being done by the university. And so we did. We altered those 3 words to something something else, and oh gosh, or gee, or something like that. Or instead of saying son of a bitch, we almost got creamed. And instead of saying ass, we said butt. And instead of saying hell, we said heck. And instead of saying damn, we said darn. And so anyway, the University of Memphis published it. And as soon as it was put out that I had written this book and it was being published, I was in the nursing office, in the vice president's office in a meeting, and got a call, the operator paging me, and so she told me to go ahead and take my call, and it was New York City calling me from Good Morning America. And David Hartman wanted to interview me the next day on Good Morning America. And I didn't know what to say. And my boss was sitting right there. And I told her, and she said, go ahead. I could tell she wasn't happy. Go ahead. Don't say anything to anyone about it. So anyway, I told him I could come. And then I get a call right away from the University of Memphis. And they already had booked airline reservations for me, and someone was going with me from the University of Memphis State then.
Right.
And so Bob got me out to the airport, and I met the lady that was going with me to fly up there. I hadn't already met her. I knew her. And we got on the plane, and I was sitting in the middle, and there was a young man on one side of me, and Earlene was sitting by the window. And Earlene, the guy said, what are you ladies going to New York for? And I wasn't saying anything. And Arlington, oh, she's going to be on Good Morning America in the morning with I think it was David Hartman. And he said, wow, what for? And she said, well, she was Elvis's nurse. And so she hadn't really said it very loud, but he got up and left the seat in just a little bit and told a flight attendant. And apparently she told everybody on the plane. So then she came to see what we wanted for dinner, and she said, we have a lasagna for dinner, but she looked at me and she said, you can have a steak. And I said, I really would rather have the lasagna. And so we went on to New York, and then we got off the plane, and a young girl came up to me, and she just took my arm, and she was crying. She said, thank you for taking care of him. Uh-huh. And we went on. There was a limo there to pick us up, to take us to the hotel. And then there was a limo there the next morning to take us to the studio. And I was on with David Hartman. And I just had a little notebook in my hand. And he did the interview. And after it was over, I said, would you autograph this for me? And he wrote on it, with admiration and respect. David Hartman wrote it to me, put my name on it. With admiration and respect, David Hartman.
Wow. Nice.
And then the limo took us on out to the airport, and we left and came on back home. Well, my boss had told me, she said, do not let anybody in this building know where you're going. And I said, okay. So she said, you have my permission to leave now. Well, I had to get home to get ready to go. And I had called Bob in the meantime, told him I was coming in to get out an overnight bag for me. And so I left the building without saying a word to a soul. And the next morning, she called a meeting with all of the supervisors, the administrative supervisors, and the assistant directors, and all in the boardroom. And no, she didn't call the supervisors, just the administrative supervisors, assistant directors, and her. And everybody wondered what the meeting was about. And she told them that I had been flown to New York the night before and was going to be on the David Hartman show. And she said, and when we finish in here, we're going to the studio and we're going to see the film. I've asked the hospital to film it, to copy it. So they did. And so then she took them all to the studio after they had knew that it would be on, and so everybody got to see it that was in there. And she said, they said, well, she didn't say anything about it, and she said she wasn't supposed to. I told her not to. She did take them in to see the interview. And so that was sort of a neat, fun thing to do.
You were a rock star.
Geraldo had wanted me to be on his show, and I would not. And that guy in New York with all the fuzzy hair, he's on one of these talent shows as a judge once in a while. I can't remember his name. But he had a bad reputation for using a lot of nasty language on television.
Are you talking about Howard Stern?
Yeah, Howard Stern.
Okay.
And I can't tell you how many times they called me and wanted me to go on. And at the time, we had two men that did a radio show here every morning here, and I can't remember their names, but they were two really nice men. And I called both of them. I called them at the studio one day and told them that Howard Stern had been trying to get me, and I said, from what I hear, he has a bad reputation. And they said, Miss Cocke, don't do it. Mm-hmm. They said, don't do it. So I asked them, I said, what's your favorite dessert? And one of them said apple pie, and the other one said, I forgot what the other one said. But anyway, one morning, early that morning, I showed up at their studio, and I had their favorite desserts that each of them said was their favorite dessert. And I said, here, I brought you guys something. But
sounds like someone else back there likes apple pie, too.
Yeah, I know we need to be wrapping it up. Your doggies probably need your attention. But I wanted to give you a minute to talk about your Elvis Presley Memorial Dinners, because this is a very big thing. It's been a big part of your life for almost 30 years.
It really has. You know, it took me a long time I really never have gotten over it. But it took me a long time to be able to really stop and think about what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to do something that would show the type of man that Elvis really was. And that he was a very, very giving man. And I wanted to do something that would be a tribute to him. And this friend of mine from New Jersey, God rest her soul, she was a little Italian lady, and she stayed with me every year, and she said, why don't you do a dinner? I said, oh, for heaven's sakes, I'm a nurse. I've never put on big dinners like this. And I said, I wouldn't even know how to start. She said, well, learn. And, so I called the Peabody, and there was a very nice lady there named Nancy Jaret that I spoke to, and I asked her if I could come down and talk to her, and she said yes. And I went down to see her and told her, what I was thinking about and what had been suggested, and she said, well, I'll help you with it. And I said, I've never done anything like this. And she said, well, you just tell me what you want and I'll take care of it. So I said, told her what I wanted, and she said, well, how many people do you want us to put you down for? And I said, I don't have a clue. And so we talked about it for 2 or 3 months before we really reached the decision to go ahead and do it. And I said, well, maybe a couple of hundred or 250, something like that. Does that sound reasonable? And she said, yeah, that's a good start. Well, we put it down and started advertising that we were going to do one with plenty of time. It wasn't something that was going to be next month. It was going to be like 3 or 4 months down the road.
Right.
So there was an employee that worked at Graceland that I knew, and she said, oh, I'll put this in our bulletin. And it will go out to all the fan clubs and everybody will see it. And I want to be a part of this and help you. And so, first of all, it never came out in the bulletin. And secondly, she helped me some. Not really too much, but some. And she was helpful in a lot of ways. But anyway, the tickets were sold from a charitable organization here in town, and by the secretary, and we didn't really sell but 85 tickets because it was never advertised.
Right.
It was the best kept secret in town. And then even she told me that her boss came in and took 4 tickets that he didn't pay for, and so that was 89 people then. And George Klein was there at the very first one, and he had to go do a radio show, but he did make an introduction, and he came on and he talked for a few minutes and then left and had a fabulous dinner and had some entertainment, and everybody really enjoyed themselves, and the food was delicious, and we were $2,500 in debt because of the tickets we had projected selling and didn't sell but 85 or 89. And so this organization was very unhappy with me. I was a part of it. They were very unhappy with me. And because they said, we went into this venture with you, which they had done nothing to help.
Right.
And we were expected to make money, not lose money. So I said, I'm really sorry, but I did the best I could. And I started working on a dinner for the next year because the 85 people that were there went out and told everybody else what they missed. So this organization said, well, we are not going to be a part of anything else that you do, but we do want the money from it.
Of course.
And so, like an idiot, I went ahead and did it for about 5 years, just giving them the money for it. But the next year we had 350 people there. The next year we had about 500 people there. And the next thing you knew, we were filling up the dining room. And so I had made some pictures along the way and was giving this organization all the money. And I went to a convention thing out in Phoenix, Arizona, and was showing the pictures around. So by then, I had been the president of the organization, and then someone else. We usually stayed in 1 or 2 years, and I preferred to stay only one. And so then a man took over, and he was at this same thing. And so I was resting in my room one day, and somebody knocked on my door, and I got up and went to the door, and it was this man, and he said, "Can I talk to you for a little bit?" And I said, "Sure, come on in." And I went back over and stretched back out on my bed, and I said, "Here's a chair you can sit in." And he sat down, wanted to know how I was doing, blah, blah, this, and, this, that, and the other. He said he noticed the pictures on the table. And he picked a couple of the pictures up, and he said, "This is what I came to talk to you about." And I said, "Oh." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Now that you have made this a success, we want you to give it to us." And I said, "You what?" "We want you to give it to us now that you have made it a success."
Right.
And I'm going to tell you exactly what I told him. I called him by name, and I said, "You see that bush out there?" He said, "Yep." I said, "You go out there and piss up that bush, and that's as fast as you're going to get this dinner." And I said, "I'm not giving you my dinner." "Well, now, we'll let you be on the committee. We'll let you do this. We'll let you do that. We'll let you do the other." And I said, "Yes, and I will let you out that door."
Wow.
I said, "You are not getting my dinner." I said, "You guys did not support me. You did not help me in any shape, form, and fashion. The only thing you wanted was the money." And I said, "I will tell you furthermore that from this day forward, we will be sharing the money with other organizations." That's exactly. So he went out the door, and that was the last I had anything to do with this organization. We did have a dinner coming up the next month, and I did go ahead and give them the money from that. And so they said, and I told them, I said, I'm done. And they said, "Well, think about it," and said, "Just let us hear from you by the 1st of February. That's when we set our budget." And I said, "Well, if you get a letter from me by the 1st of February that I'm going to donate to you, then I will donate to you. But if you don't get that letter, you'll know you're not getting another dime from me." And they never have.
Good. Well, they shouldn't. They
absolutely should not. And I had raised and given them over $150,000.
Oh, my goodness.
So all in all, would you say it's in the hundreds of thousands or the millions that you've helped raise for charity?
We've given over $1 million.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Marian, that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
And it's gone to that organization. It's gone to cerebral palsy, to Special Olympics. It's gone to the Humane Society, to the Trauma Center, to Baptist for Indigent Patient Care, and to Baptist for Nursing Education. And we've given to various organizations in town. We just started splitting. I said Elvis gave to more than one, and we're going to start giving more than one too.
Right.
I love that. And I know there's already talks, there's things in the works for 2018, and we'll definitely keep our listeners and our readers up to date, just like we did for the last one. So we're looking forward to it.
It's going to be on Monday, the 13th of August, and it will be at 7 o'clock in the dining room at the guest house.
Wow.
And it will be formal.
Now, you've had these quite a few times on August the 13th. Is there a reason you chose that date, or just happens?
No, it's just sort of a good halfway date.
Okay.
And but there's no specific reason. And I think maybe our first one was probably on August the 13th. But, I have had several on August the 13th, but it's sort of an in-between date, and it's real. I have to tell you this story. There was a actor from Hollywood that had been, actually Bob knew him. He had been in the service with Bob, and but he decided that he was going to come to Memphis and he was going to put on a benefit of some sort, and the following year, and so he put it on. He called Graceland and told him that he wanted to do this show. He was not going to do a benefit. He was going to do a show, and he gave him the same date that I had my dinner. And she told him, she said, "This is the night that Marian does her dinner, and you might want to choose another night." And he told her, and the person at Graceland told me this, and said that he told her, "Oh no, Memphis is big enough that it'll take care of both of us." And so he went ahead and planned for his the same night as mine. Well, I had a packed house. We were up in the Skyway, and we had a packed house, and they told me that he had enough people to fill most of the first row.
Oh, wow.
At the Cannon Center.
Wow.
And the next day was the President's Luncheon. That's when they used to have a President's Luncheon, and we went out to the Hilton. It was the Hilton then. I forgot what it's called now. It's that big round hotel right off the expressway at Poplar. And we went out there for this luncheon, and so they asked me to come up on the stage and speak and tell them what we had raised, and so I did, and we'd raised about $23,000, and he told me later, he said, "Well," he said, "you certainly did outdo me," and I said, "Well, you know, I had that booked long before you booked your date." And he said, "Well, I just thought Memphis was big enough that we could accommodate him." And I know that DJ Fontana, bless his heart, had told the guy he would play in the band. And so when I went to the Mafia reunion 2 or 3 days later, DJ said, "I'm going to your dinner next year." And I said, "Well, that's good." He said, "What are you doing there?"
Right. Playing for nobody.
Yeah. But, you know, I love DJ Fontana. He's such a great man. And Karen, his wife, is just such a great lady. They're wonderful, wonderful friends.
Oh, well, after the show, maybe you can give us his number, and we'll call him next.
Well, I have his number because his son David and I played in a band for quite a while. So
we want to thank you so much, Miss Marian, for your time. We've been talking over an hour now, so you've just been so generous, and we really appreciate it. And just appreciate what you do and you continue to do, and we hope you'll keep in touch. And if you ever, want to send us an article or anything like that, we'd love to have it. We'll put it up on the website, and we'll definitely let everybody know how they can get your fantastic book, your audio CD book, and your hour-long DVD. We'll make sure to let everybody know how they can get that.
Okay, well, thank you. And I've enjoyed every minute of this. Thank you so much.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.
Very great. Well, thank you so much, Marian.
We'd also like to thank Lee Douglas of Old Time Rock and Roll, always found at www.oldtimernr.com, for converting our show to iTunes. We appreciate you, Lee. Be sure to check out Lee's fantastic site and listen to his weekly shows, all oldies music with no commercials. TCB Radio Network is strictly a fan publication, not affiliated in any way with Elvis Presley Enterprises or any of its affiliates or subsidiaries. Please visit us online at tcbradionetwork.com. All trademarks, product names, company names, and logos mentioned are the properties of their respective owners. All opinions stated within do not necessarily reflect the opinions of anyone else, and certainly not Elvis Presley Enterprises.
Still the King, our theme song for TCB Radio Network podcast, was written by Shane Douglas, produced by Terry Fullwider at Blue Spot Studios, and performed by Peter Alden and his band Crown Electric Company, featuring David Fontana, son of Elvis Presley's original drummer DJ Fontana, on drums.
And Elvis Presley is still the king. Well, he's still the